All right. And it looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody. We are on Project SIP's podcast number 13. I am your host, Alex, back from my little hiatus. Wanted to start the podcast off real quickly by thanking Kylan, Jake, and Amanda for moderating the podcast in my absence. You guys did a great job. Thank you again for that. Mainly, I want to jump right into it. How's everybody feeling after that debate? Let's start with Tyler.
Is there a way that we could just get out of this timeline? Because it just, I don't know what that was. I don't know what any of it was. It was so confusing to watch and so infuriating, especially when you're playing one of the drinking games, because you just are just drinking the whole entire time and getting progressively more inebriated and not able to comprehend how frustrating it is until you rewatch it when you're sober.
So Tyler, let me ask you this. How drunk were you that night?
Pretty drunk.
Hungover the next day?
No. I don't have hangovers, thankfully.
You're one of the lucky ones.
I'm one of the lucky ones.
Now that I'm in my early 30s, my hangovers are the most painful, debilitating thing you've ever experienced. So I'm glad you don't have to deal with that. But
I don't either.
I second what Alex said.
Let's move on. Amanda, what were your thoughts?
I felt like I was watching a bunch of toddlers, and I feel really sorry for kindergarten teachers because now I understand what they go through. It was just like the worst thing I've seen out of politics in terms of just professionalism. And that kind of went for both sides, but in my opinion, Trump was way less professional. Biden tried to hold it together. He cracked a few times. With his, come on, man, shut up, stuff like that. But I'm just like, how is this a presidential debate? And it was incredibly frustrating to watch. And I can't even imagine, okay, so there are undecided voters out there, shockingly enough, but I can't even imagine what it would have been like watching that as one of them, because it was a train wreck from start to finish.
Thank you. Yeah, I get it. That couldn't have been easy. Vlad, what are your immediate thoughts?
My immediate thoughts are similar to what Amanda just so eloquently put. It was incredibly difficult to watch. At times, I felt that Donald Trump was trying to actively debate Chris Wallace. So that was kind of very difficult. That was difficult. It felt like the two of them were going back and forth, and Joe Biden was just kind of standing there, just patiently waiting, like, "Hey, when am I going to get my chance to speak?" I think something has to change for future debates to cut down on the number of interruptions that happened from, and I'm not going to say that, strictly on President Trump. Both interrupted. I think, Donald Trump did it more, but
Chris Wallace said that too.
Yeah. Overall, I don't know. I think it was I'm not going to say it was a disaster. I think it was the best that we were going to get, given what we've already seen from Donald Trump during the 2016 election cycle, and what we've seen from his presidency. But we need better.
Understood. Let's go to Jake next, and then Amanda wanted to jump back in for a quick sec.
Actually, Amanda said it first. It kind of felt like watching toddlers, but I've actually worked with really young children for years and gotten to see those fantastic nonsense arguments where they're both arguing about something that neither of them knows anything about. And I've seen those kids respect decorum and make more sound arguments than I saw during that debate. That was exactly the farce that I've always thought presidential debates were, just with all of the grace and lace taken off of it.
Thank you. Amanda, did you want to jump back in?
Yeah, so as Vlad was talking, I was thinking about what kind of frustrated me most about a lot of the interruptions that happened, particularly from Trump, is that a lot of times it felt like he was trying to derail the topic or pivot the topic And it made it very hard as a viewer to kind of stay on track to what the topic actually was. Chris Wallace kept having to kind of direct back to the original question. And even when Trump wasn't interrupting, if it was a question directly to him, that was really frustrating because he wouldn't actually give a direct answer. I feel like on my own Facebook page, I had like a running commentary the whole time. And at one point I put like objection non-responsive because he wasn't answering some of the questions directly and he would just pivot to a totally different topic. And I thought a lot of what he did on Tuesday was just like a master class in logical fallacies. He was non-responsive, he was off topic, he pivoted to other topics, he engaged in ad hominem attacks. Biden did too, but the fact that, Trump went after Biden's kids, like it wasn't relevant to the discussion. It wasn't, something that if you're trying to get the undecided voter, how do you do that if all you're doing is attacking the other person and saying, well, he's going to make things worse instead of how you're going to make things better. And so even just as like an attorney, that was incredibly frustrating to watch because he just couldn't answer a straight question.
I feel it. Understood. Let's move on to Kylan. What were your thoughts on the debate?
So I watched from start to finish. I seen everything, I heard everything. I'm not going to speak on it as a point of Biden or even the president. I honestly saw that debate as a microcosm of today's society. Our society, as it stands right now, is a fact-free society, is a splintered society, is an angry society, is a society that deflects and doesn't take responsibility. So the debate was a microcosm of our society as a whole, and it was very disappointing to hear. I'm hoping that the next debate will be better, being that it's a town hall style debate and they'll be talking directly with voters. And so I'm hoping that some of that won't happen next time because, they'll be disrespecting live voters that are asking questions. But again, I hold no reservations or expectations of anything right now. For all I know, a comet can strike the debate forum. Who knows? But
one can hope.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting in not a good way, and I'm just hoping for a better showing next time. I honestly think the American people deserve to have serious questions answered and actually hear, what candidates are going to do to try to help us. Because the last time I checked, there are Americans that are hungry, there are Americans that are dying, there are Americans that are not being educated, there are Americans that are homeless, and I didn't hear anything that was going to help those people. And so I'm hoping that we hear something about that next time.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that for the next one, something significant needs to change for sure. Let's go to Jules next, and then we'll end this question with Robert.
Yeah. So, I don't know that I was shocked in terms of what I expected, because what I expected was pretty much what we got. It's kind of, still shocking to see that level of chaos in real time. But, that's basically what was going to happen. I thought, to his credit, Biden did exactly what he needed to. It was, he didn't lose his cool. He lost his cool a little bit, but not enough that, Trump was definitely trying to goad him, trying to coax him into a snafu, coax him into Biden has a tendency to kind of get derailed easily and get emotional about things. And he didn't let Trump do that to him. So, for the most part, I think Biden did as well as he could under the circumstances. But you have this guy who's raging like a lunatic in the background, interrupting everything he says constantly. Every time he tried to make a point, Trump's jumping in there, making weird, baseless accusations and sounding basically like his Twitter feed, which I don't think really came off very well, because this is Trump's election to lose here. And his goal for this election was, I'm 7 to 8 points behind. I need to convince people that this is why I should be reelected. And I don't think he did that at all. He just came off kind of, insane. So I didn't really expect anything more than that. But, I thought it was just kind of disappointing that the office of the presidency has fallen so far that, we have this dude ranting in the background every time somebody tries to say something of substance.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally understand. I want to quickly in the chat, I wanted to recognize one that I thought was pretty funny. William Adams in the chat says, we need Samuel L. Jackson to narrate the next one. I completely agree. I think that's phenomenal.
Moderate the next one.
Or
Yeah.
to moderate
2 minutes, motherfucker.
Yeah, I agree with Jules. I've said this before, but I literally watch every single testimonial on the YouTube page for Republican voters against Trump. And there's a big trend of people saying, I thought he would grow into the presidency. I thought he would become more presidential. He would have handlers who would make sure he was behaving and speaking appropriately and guiding him. And I think this just goes to show he hasn't learned anything about how to actually be a president and present that patriotic, appropriate, professional leadership type of image to the nation. I mean, I thought he did more in terms of unprofessionalism than he did in the debates with Hillary 4 years ago. It just was super unpresidential.
Let's take it over to Robert. Robert, how do you think that debate went?
I think it was all around just a poor performance by everybody. I think it's what we expect Donald Trump, but not something that we expected with Joe Biden. From what I really saw, I don't really think I could consider bringing up Hunter's past as an ad hominem of attack, but using terms like calling somebody a clown or calling somebody a racist on the debate stage is something that we don't really ever see. So I was kind of shocked by Joe Biden performing like that, but by no way do I think that there was a winner of that debate. I think the real loser in that debate was actually Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
How he had acted. I think it was kind of more of a real bias showing by the questions he had asked, and didn't really push Joe Biden on different things like packing the Supreme Court. And then Chris Wallace would go and ask Donald Trump 7 different times about climate change. So I think that unfortunately, even though Chris Wallace is a Fox News anchor, I think it's unfortunate that that's the best that we could get for a neutral moderation. So,
and I'll be honest, like at the beginning, I liked the Chris Wallace selection actually, because I think that he's typically very fair in the interviews that he does with people. And I thought he would be a great choice, but I agree. I think it was a shameful moderator performance from him. I want to ask a follow-up question to Robert real quick. Robert, what does President Trump need to do differently in the next debate to convince you that he did a better job?
Not do that crap. I think the problem is what he did by both sides really hadn't moved the needle at all. And I think that this next time around, Donald Trump needs to have more of a professional approach. I think maybe that's what they had discussed was kind of making it a free-for-all discussion, which is not something I really like to watch in a debate. I watch debates all the time on Twitch, and I kind of like the professional 2 minutes. And so I think that what Donald Trump needs to do is kind of turn it around and make more of a professional show of the debate. I think that will help him tremendously. But I think as of right now, after that debate last night, I think that this is actually Joe Biden's race to lose. I don't think that Donald Trump is in line to be reelected after last night's performance, even though it didn't change the deal. But
And it's interesting because that typically breaks with most of your party who actually applauded the job that the president did in interrupting Joe Biden, seemed to throw him off his game and stuff like that. So,
Well, I like watching people that are, like, I'm more watching people like Tim Pool and even Ben Shapiro. I watched his live coverage of it and after, and they all, a lot of those people had admitted that Donald Trump had lost that debate.
Yeah.
So I don't really listen to the congressional Republicans when it comes to politics, because they're obviously just gonna bootlick for their party. As
Understood.
both sides.
Thank you, Robert. I want to go to Tyler. I wasn't sure if you wanted to respond to this, but you wanted to get in on this, right? With your mic unmuted, hopefully.
Completely forgot I muted it. That's the one thing throughout 2020 that we're all gonna have to figure out how to unmute our mics.
If only
sometime.
Chris Wallace had a mute button.
I know, right? But
Or a shot caller.
so Jules and Robert kind of touched on it, but I wanted to expand on it a little bit more. Biden came into this debate, depending on who you talk to, depending on which formula you use, he was anywhere between 5 and 8 points ahead nationally. So Trump had everything to lose. He needed to gain more. Biden could just do nothing. He could just be a cucumber on the table and he wouldn't necessarily lose anything. But Trump needed to do something to gain people on his side. I feel like he did the complete opposite in this. He didn't do himself any favors for those people that are undecideds. But as I think we've all kind of said, we don't know how there's any undecideds at this point. But there are people that are a single issue or where they want to vote for a certain candidate, but they're looking for a reason to vote for them. And this, frankly, for either candidate, didn't give anybody a reason to vote for them, for sure.
Full agreement here
Thank you.
for either of them.
Kylan, you wanted to get in next?
Yeah, I wanted to just do a small pivot because this was something that happened just today. When we talked about, when Tyler brought up a point about the polling and Trump being around 8 points behind nationally, people are already voting. So there's a really big early voting number that's going on right now. But when I talk about early voting, some things that I'm actually kind of concerned about are some of the shenanigans that are starting to go on. So for example, today, Greg Abbott in Texas did an executive order today, closing down 11 drop boxes to 1 per county. And that was already after voting rights advocates and county commissioners had started advertising to drop your ballots off at the drop boxes, and without any notice, rescinded all but 1 drop box per county for every county in Texas. Also, the Philadelphia legislature, the Philadelphia House of Representatives in Pennsylvania also passed a resolution along party line votes to investigate potential election fraud, which could possibly be used as an avenue to circumvent the voters when it comes to electoral college. So those are just a couple of things to keep an eye on. So, I'm hoping that these are just isolated incidents, but my advice to our viewers is to vote as often as possible. If you have friends and family in swing states, advise them to turn in their ballots as soon as possible and vote as early as possible, because I do think that, people need to be vigilant about that.
I would like to just really quickly, Kylan, say I think we should advise our viewers to vote as quickly as possible and not as often as possible.
Well,
Oh my God.
Please vote once.
Vote regularly.
I
just
definitely
once per
do not
election.
need to say
Anytime
often,
there's
for
an
sure.
election, not just in a presidential election, vote in the midterms, vote in your local election.
Vlad, thank you. I would never
Yes.
send that information. I meant vote as quickly as possible. Oh,
I just wanted to make sure. I don't
Thank
want
you.
to,
Thank you, sir.
Early and often.
Alberto in the
Teamwork.
chat says he plans on voting 5 times. Please know we did not endorse that.
Oh,
Let's
Oh dear Lord.
let's go to Amanda, and then I want to.
No, it's Jules' turn.
Oh, it is Jules. Go ahead, Jules,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna go to the next question.
Yeah.
Well, I-
No,
Okay. So,
then it's Amanda.
Yeah.
I just wanted to speak on Biden's, as Robert said, his ad hominem attacks. But here's the deal with that: is we're talking about a president who belittled a man with palsy. He made this motion. He's
Wait, hold on. I
frequently
didn't
called-
see. Will you do it again? I wasn't looking at the video.
He did like this weird hand thing. He made
but not-
fun
but
of
not
somebody
making
with
fun of
a
the president.
disability. He made fun of somebody with
Yeah.
a disability on the national stage. He has frequently called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. He has been the king of ad hominem attacks. So to criticize Biden for getting annoyed with constant interruptions, constant unprofessionalism, and calling him a clown, well, as somebody on a focus group I was listening to said, well, the clown shoe fits. He literally
But the thing is,
he has not set a precedent for being
you're making
respectful
a
in
you're making a
politics.
you're making a tu quo qui argument, saying that because one side does it, that it's okay that the other side does it.
Well, I
I'm
don't think you
I-
can criticize that
yes,
if you're gonna say that.
Watch me.
Biden did
Watch.
this. Well,
Watch me,
you're gonna
Jules.
criticize
Jules, hold on,
Biden
Jules. Jules,
for
watch me. Donald
calling
Trump.
him a clown.
Donald Trump, don't do it. Joe Biden, don't do it.
I don't think either of them should do it, but I don't
Well,
think it was
there you
necessarily
go.
unjustified. I don't think it was a good thing. I'm not saying it was good, but I'm saying that Donald Trump has set a precedent that has been
And
really
Donald Trump didn't even
cruel
do
and
it on the
mean,
debate stage.
and well, they should. Nobody should be doing it.
All right, guys.
But Donald
I-
Trump has
I-
been
I
doing it the
agree.
entire time. His
guys,
entire
we get
Come
it.
on, Chris Wallace,
We get it.
jump
and
in.
as,
That's a
we-
great
as far as I mean, the thing about Hunter
Unlike
Biden
Chris
wasn't.
Wallace, I actually
ad-
do have a mute button.
Yeah, and
I'm
use
not
it.
afraid
Set
to
a
use it.
standard, dude. There's no reason not to.
As far as the Hunter Biden thing, no, that wasn't an ad hominem attack, but it was real trashy. It was cruel, and it was absolutely unbecoming of the presidential office. I mean, he didn't even know which son Biden was talking about. He was talking about Beau Biden, his son, who died very tragically at the height of his career of a brain tumor. And Biden just dismissed it out of hand. I mean,
Or
it just
Trump just
demonstrates
dismissed it.
a lack of human empathy that I think everybody's going to look at and go, well, this guy's just an asshole. Like,
We already
fuck
knew
this
he was
guy.
an
I mean, it
asshole.
just, well, yeah, but we shouldn't have an asshole for a president.
Jules, I
But
need to
Joe
cut you off
Biden
right
was
there.
no
I'm going to
better.
give Robert 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to go to Amanda.
I don't even need 30 seconds. Joe Biden was no better. I'm not condoning either side. And by saying one side did something doesn't justify the other side doing it. I condone both sides. So there's nothing really else.
You
to be
condemn
said.
both
Biden,
Thank you.
Biden was the first person to interrupt during the debate.
Let's go to Amanda.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump off the whole ad hominem thing really quickly. I think it's a bit of a false equivalency to say that their use of ad hominems was the same. The context was different. The reasons for it was different. One was defensive, one was offensive. You also have the human empathy thing that Jules just mentioned. So, this could have been a great opportunity in this debate for Donald Trump to show the American people that he has the ability to be actually empathetic or, send a message to families. And he threw Joe Biden the biggest softball of the night. And when Joe's talking about Beau Biden and Trump starts talking about Hunter Biden and his cocaine addiction, Biden looks straight at the camera and says how proud he is of his son for overcoming his addiction. And I think that resonated with a lot of Americans because that's something that a vast majority of people in this country have to deal with either openly or privately, or know somebody or cares for somebody who has. That was, I think, a shining moment for Joe Biden. And it was just a fastball straight down the middle from Trump. Jules, you brought up mocking the disabled reporter. And this is pure speculation, but I kind of think that interrupting on Trump's part was intentionally part of his strategy for the night. There's been a lot of, talk online or in, with the media pundits. Oh, Joe Biden, if he can't, finish a sentence, he can't this, he has dementia, he needs a teleprompter. I think people who say those things casually or even intentionally forget that Joe Biden has a disability. He has a stutter. You can see this in the way he speaks just generally, where he starts to say one word and then switch to kind of a related word or a synonym because he can't get the word out. It's not as pronounced as it likely was when he was younger, but I think that the interrupting strategy was intentional to try to make him look weaker as a speaker. And to do that to somebody who has a speech disability it's ableist, and it's just a trash move. I think it would have been a much better move to talk about different policies and talk about those things instead of interrupting, instead of attacking, instead of throwing insults about.
Oh, might have lost Amanda here.
Yep.
She frozen for, okay, everyone else too. Okay, well, let's move on then. I want to get to a few viewer comments here. Alberto in the chat says, Trump supporters can't be butthurt when Trump is a dick and they respond. Kind of got to agree there. Albert also says, if a boxer punches below the belt, you do it back to them, period. I got to agree. Like in a debate setting, like you can't be mad when the shoe's on the other foot. But in any case, let's move on to the next question while Amanda is still frozen. I'm actually going to mute her just in case all of her audio.
Robert was looking to respond to that one. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Robert, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I got kicked off.
So
Go ahead,
the
Robert.
first thing I wanted to bring up was that the whole night Donald Trump hadn't personally attacked Joe Biden. So for us to sit here and say that Donald Trump had attacked Joe Biden and that Donald Trump deserved it for how he acted, I think Donald Trump actually, in the uses of derogatory terms, I think Donald Trump had actually done better in that. The second thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that Donald Trump had never made fun of a disabled reporter for his disability. If you actually watch the video and how he responded to the flustered reporter, the reporter actually doesn't even have cerebral palsy. He doesn't have some kind of shake. He has a hand that's stuck like this. So when Donald Trump makes different gestures of throwing up his arms, he has done that for multiple times. And I think it's kind of unfair to say that Donald Trump had attacked a reporter for his disability. I think that's just falsely not true. So I just kind of wanted to get that clear.
We got to move on to the next. Thank you for clarifying that point, Robert. We got to get to the what?
I said I super disagree that he wasn't making fun of a disabled reporter.
Noted. We're moving on though. There were
Dang, are you the moderator by jumping in here and freaking?
You know what? I'm proving here. I'm already better than Chris Wallace. I'm the best moderator, guys.
Yeah, freaking.
All right, well, just make my internet fail again.
Next question. There were many moments in that debate that were quite memorable. I think we can all agree with that, as painful as it was. But I want to go to everybody individually and ask you, what was the most memorable moment for you, good or bad? I want to start with Tyler on that one. Go ahead.
Are you sure you want to start with me?
I am very sure.
Well, at the top of the hour, they started talking about racism in America. And I think everybody kind of knows where I'm going with this one, but Chris Wallace gave Trump an opening just to say, will you condemn white supremacists and groups that are like them? Even Biden was like, just do it, just condemn it. And Trump bounced around a little bit. Yeah, he did say sure in passing, but it wasn't like, no, I don't agree with white supremacists or racists that are out there that support me. He basically said, he basically was trying to get them to tell him who he should be denouncing. And of course, Biden threw him out the Proud Boys. And then Trump said, well, Proud Boys, they can stand back and stand by. You know, it to me was very scary. And it feels like we are kind of getting into a big kind of war with that. And he's trying to create well, obviously he likes to create chaos, as Kellyanne Conway has said in the past, in division. But this is the division that will involve numerous people's lives around the country, lives like mine. And it really, as we've kind of talked about all summer long, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It gives me nightmares about me just going out down the street and running into somebody wearing a PB shirt or wearing, just doing anything, frankly. And I live in California, and supposedly a very liberal bastion, but even here it happens. And even Trump's own FBI director says that white supremacy is a bigger deal than Antifa or whatever is going on the left. A majority of problems in domestic terrorism comes from the right. We need to make sure we discredit all that, and we know that that's a problem. And Trump had an opportunity to do it. He even had an opportunity the day after. He had an opportunity today, or at least his spokeswoman had an opportunity to do it. And you can bring up quotes about what you've said in the past, but when you get asked a question directly, why can't you just say, no, I don't want those people to support him. He has a problem about saying anything bad about anybody that supports him. And this is a perfect example of that.
Thank you, Tyler. I want to get to a few comments in the chat real quick. Linda Reed in chat says, Alex should moderate the next debate. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate that.
I noticed you pinned that.
She's a little biased.
little biased, but
She's not wrong.
It is. Thank you. Appreciate it. And then in response to the question, out of all the memorable moments, what was the most memorable moment for you, good or bad? In chat, Melissa Hobler says, just shut up, man. I knew I was thinking it. We all were. Let's be real. So moving on to Kylan, go ahead.
So for me, just to, I first want to just take a moment to piggyback on Tyler's comment, because that was definitely the most pressing comment for me. But I'm not going to think of it as the way as what the president didn't say. I'm going to come at it from the way is what the president says or doesn't say matters. And regardless of how the president may have interpreted it, how the Proud Boys immediately interpreted at that moment during the debate, they took it as a call to arms. They put stand back and stand by as their logo. They posted on their threads, "We're standing by, sir," and they were very enthused. Now, I'm not going to directly attribute and say Trump intended to rile them up, but I'm using that as an example that what a president says matters, whether he misspoke, whether he misstated, or whether it was intentional. A president's words matter, and they have a direct impact, especially on those that support him. So something that resonated with me regarding the debate personally, aside from that comment, was the comment about, oh my God, I'm like literally blanking out right now. I had the whole thing thought of, I'm having like a boomer moment. Oh my God. You know what? Take the next person, and can I circle back?
I was going to say, you want to come back to you, or?
Yes, please, in 60 seconds.
No problem. Vlad, let's go to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, one of the biggest moments in the debate, and one of the things that I found incredibly kind of powerful and somewhat moving, was the times that Joe Biden would directly address the American people. When he pulled a Jim moment from The Office, when he would literally look straight in the camera and speak to you at home. And, he did it multiple times. One of the times he did it was when he was speaking about Hunter overcoming his drug addiction. But, like I said, he did it multiple times. And I think that was something that would help, even some undecided voters potentially connect with him on a more human level. Other than that, I think the biggest thing that he did was he didn't, for the most part, fall into the trap that I think Donald Trump was trying to lay for him. And that comes, that definitely comes with not being able to control his emotions and being able to control his stutter, to not let that come out, but also not to necessarily sink to the level where where Donald Trump's been operating for the past 4 years. I think he dipped his toes in the water there, once or twice, but he didn't live there. And I think as a result, that benefited him. And that was, I'd say those were the most memorable things for me out of this whole, clusterfuck of a debate.
Thank you. So Kylan remembered his point, so I'm going to go back to Kylan real quick.
Yeah, so my point was, it was actually towards the end of the debate, and it was something that concerned me when on 2 different occasions he mentioned to his supporters to go to the polls and keep an eye.
Yeah.
Wind the clock back around 2 weeks, there was an incident in Virginia during the first day of early voting where there were things that were going on. There was a crowd of supporters that were blocking the entrance and that were in close proximity to the voters that constituted intimidation. And I just feel that this is going to escalate matters because I can definitely tell you when he speaks, people listen, that support him, and they do what he says. And so when he says he wants my people, my supporters to go to the polls and watch out for shenanigans or watch out for fraud, they're going to do that. And what I'm hoping is that there's not going to be heavily armed men in camouflage and AR-15s, in face paint and flags going, watching the polls, intimidating people. In many states, it's against the law for people to impede or intimidate voters in any way. And so, number one, I feel that he's openly, telling people to break the law in a lot of cases. But 2, I feel this is going to lead to unnecessary escalation. And again, this goes back to my point that a president's words matter. Whether what he's saying is intentional or not, I'm not even going to go to his intentions, but what he is saying is going to have a certain desired effect among his supporters that he needs to be responsible for and that he needs to be cognizant of. I don't have any confidence whatsoever that he cares or is cognizant of those things, but I'm hoping that his advisors or some of the members of Congress will grow a spine and grow some conscience and maybe try to simmer down a little bit. And I would also say the same to make sure that tensions are simmered down for anyone, any ideology, any individual. I don't want there to be any sort of violence or any sort of altercations in any way. But what the president says matters. A president's words matter.
Thank you. Let's go to Jules next.
Yeah, so I think my most memorable moment was Biden's point on Beau Biden and the follow-up with Hunter. I thought that showed the contrast between Joe Biden and Donald Trump most starkly, with Biden being full of compassion and full of love for his family, and Trump not even seeming to understand what he was talking about in the first place, and jumping to tell him how Hunter had been dishonorably discharged, which is not true, and was a cokehead, which is true, but is also kind of besides the point. And to Tyler's point, I think the whole exchange about Trump not wanting to denounce white supremacists, not wanting to denounce ultra-right nationalistic groups, I think that speaks to the Republican Party as a whole being concerned that they don't have enough votes to win going into the future. If you look at the demographics, and the demographics are changing in terms of the voting bloc, it's moving towards the left in general. And I think the Republicans understand that they cannot now afford to lose any block of voters. And I think that it's causing this cognitive dissonance within their ranks, because on one hand they don't want to condone this extremist behavior, but on the other hand they can't really afford to lose those voters either, because they feel like they're a dying breed. And I think that speaks to the reason behind why Trump doesn't want to absolutely condemn them. And I think there's a lot of these groups who swear allegiance to Donald Trump, and I think it's also an ego thing. He's trying to maintain the love of the people who still love him. And I think that is a number that's dwindling as well. And I think he feels that. I think the Republican Party feels that, and they're not willing to lose those votes.
Thank you, Jules. I want to get to a few questions and comments in the chat here. Stephanie O'Donnell in the chat said, agree, Amanda, that Trump's behavior was strategic. Deva O says, George W. Bush was a cokehead as well. I don't know that I agree with that. And then we have a question from William Adams here. If this was 2004, economy in tatters, my opinion, Trump's ethics and persona are very similar to the rise of Hitler. Now, let's say he ran for president then. Do you think there would be a rise in racism and national pride? Amanda, you wanted to take that one?
Yeah. So I think it's a mix of a yes and no. I mean, it's no secret to anybody who paid attention that racism and national pride both rose immediately after 9/11. In the years following 9/11, it was all about the American flag, but there was also a lot of racism directed at people who were Muslim or perceived to be Middle Eastern, or people who were Middle Eastern, or people who were of South Asian descent who were perceived to be Middle Eastern. There were a lot of hate crimes, some pretty horrible ones with, gas station clerks getting shot, children being called terrorists, things like that. So, I mean, yes, I think there would be a rise in those things if Trump had run at those times, but I also don't necessarily think it would be to the same degree that it is now, because social media wasn't really a thing then. I mean, like MySpace was around and like LiveJournal and Zanga, but we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or WhatsApp or, any of the platforms that have increased people discussing issues in our society, increased visibility of, I don't even know the correct word, incidents of racism, but also visibility of certain ideologies. You didn't have Facebook groups for, racist white supremacists back in 2004. They didn't have those same types of safe spaces. They may have had chat rooms, but it wasn't to the level that we have now, where people have access to harmful ideologies. They have access to incel communities. They have access to misinformation. And all of that, like we talked about previously, leads to politicization. And we didn't have the same type of politicization then. That
Wait, leads to what?
Politicization.
Okay.
I've been practicing that word, thanks. But yeah, so I mean, yes, I think the answer is yes. I don't know if it would be to the same degree as it is now in terms of Trump's popularity. I also don't think that Trump could have followed George W. Bush and gotten elected. I mean, I don't think anybody would have done that or voted for him. I know he was like thinking of running around that time, but he wouldn't have run as a Republican. He would have run as a Democrat. No one would have taken him seriously, in terms of the Democratic voting base. I think his decision to run as a Republican was entirely strategic, even though he's not a conservative, he's not a Republican, and he's not a Christian, yet that's where he put himself because he knew he could get those votes if he just said the right things. So I don't think that if he'd run in 2004, I don't think he would have run as a Republican. He wouldn't have gotten away with the type of divisive language or rhetoric that he is so often kind of putting out there now. So I don't think he would have been, the rise of Hitler in 2004.
Thank you. Quick, Jasmine Shake Snyder in the chat. Truth without compassion is just brutality. Biden's family should have never been up for discussion. Yeah,
I agree.
Agreed.
Let's go over to Robert next. You wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah.
By the way, hold on real quick before you start, dude. Look at Jules. Your shirt isn't unbuttoned. Come on, man. This is a podcast. Let's be professional, okay?
Sorry.
Pull it off.
Boys, cover up. Gosh.
I'm just kidding, man. Go ahead.
So I think the problem is that Donald Trump has condemned white supremacy about 30 times since 1990. So I think it's kind of trash that Chris Wallace had let that question go up on the debate stage when he asked that same exact question in the 2006 debates or 2016 debates. Donald Trump has condemned it multiple times. So I don't understand why that question was even brought up. I don't think that Donald Trump had given the right response. I think that Tyler's wrong when he says that Donald Trump didn't condemn white supremacy the next day when he clearly did. He said, I've denounced it and I've denounced it plenty of times before. So I don't think that he has to every single time say, I denounce white supremacy. The whole thing from Charlottesville wasn't even true because he never said they were good people he said there are good people on both sides. And he said, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists and KKK. He said that all in the same speech. So I think that this narrative is just kind of fear mongering that progressives like to do. So the other thing.
I'm not even saying this as a progressive. I'm saying this as an African American or Black person in America. And the reason why I brought it up isn't the fact that he said or didn't say. It's the fact that the racist and white supremacist thought he said. And the reason why the question
Proud Boys aren't white supremacists though.
But getting away from that because that is a completely separate topic, and I don't really want to get into it because going back to your statement about Donald Trump has brought up and supposedly denounced and said the words I do not like racists. I don't.
He said it multiple times. He's denounced David Duke. He's denounced. He's
hey guys. Let's do one at a time here. One at a time.
I can say,
Tyler, finish your point, and then Robert.
I can say the reason why the question keeps being brought up is because he does complete opposite things in public, and we have to keep asking that question because his actions are completely different than his words that he says in passing. Yes, he might say, sure, I denounce it. Oh, yes, I denounce it. I denounce it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he does leading up to the question coming says opposite. And that's why.
Okay, go ahead, Robert.
So I want to keep digging on this. So what has Donald Trump done that is so white supremacist that makes you question that he supports white supremacy? Like what kind of policies has he enacted that's white supremacist?
So a policy that he has announced on Twitter, I don't know if it's actually gone into effect, is something about low-income housing in suburban neighborhoods, and saying
that to protect us,
and saying that we're going to give you your suburbs back. When people who have racist or white supremacist tendencies will go into that and say, I don't want people. Yeah, it's a dog whistle. And people look at that and say, well, I don't want people that are low income in my neighborhood because they're single mothers and they're people that don't have a root in this neighborhood. And they say that they don't have the same things as my family. They weren't given the luxuries that I have. Well, I don't look at rich people and say, I don't have a yacht or I don't have a plane. Well, it doesn't matter. These people want a better life for their family and they want to live in nicer neighborhoods that have lower crime or have better education, things like that. So whenever I hear things like that, yes, it's a dog whistle, but that's because I've lived in it. I've lived in it.
I understand. I totally understand. But the thing is that wasn't that comment about how they were going to bring low income housing to the suburbs and that the suburbs is value wasn't going to drop in value because of some kind of act that he was going to enact that was going to protect the property values of the homes in the suburbs, because he was talking about bringing low income housing to the suburbs and the suburbs.
He was talking about not bringing low-income housing to the suburbs.
I could have sworn it was the other way around, but
he was talking about eliminating a program.
Guys, I want to get off that topic real quick. I've got a viewer question that I want to pose to Robert. Actually, Dave O in the chat says, So, Robert, what do you think of his stand down and stand by statement from the debate? Go ahead.
I don't think it was very proper wording, but like I said again, the Proud Boys aren't a white supremacy group. I mean, the leader is a Cuban American. He just did an interview in Spanish on Univision. So I don't know how you can have a freaking white supremacist group with a leader that's freaking biracial. But
I can answer that question.
I bet you can. You can go to the SPLC or you can go to whatever website you want to, but they're not a white supremacy group.
Just because they speak Spanish does not mean that they.
I know, but the leader is Cuban American. He's like dark skinned. Like
and I'm saying that does not mean that they do not like Black people. That does not mean that they don't like Muslims. That does not mean that they don't like other people.
Amanda,
I once worked for a man. Sorry, it's really quick. I once worked for a man who was half Black and half white. And he was actually a white supremacist. Like, he believes that white people are superior to Black people. He believes that white people are more intelligent than Black people.
But I've met so many proud.
I've met so many proud. That you don't have internalized racism.
And that's like the craziest thing that, like, in 2020, like when I met like gay Proud Boys, Asian Proud Boys, African American Proud Boys, that we can sit here and say that this is a group of white supremacy, because all they are is a group that to be a Proud Boy, all you have to do is get them tattooed on yourself. You have to get beat up and name 5 breakfast cereals, and you have to admit that Western culture is what protect or is why the United States is so great.
That's a strange initiation.
Western culture that's kind of like a.
Well, I know, but I understand. But this is something that you guys forgot in your religion debate. Is like when the Crusades happened. Like, if there was no Crusades, you would never know. Like, we could be a Muslim country for all you know, and we could be.
So what? There's nothing wrong with Islam.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Islam, but stoning gay people to death is something that we should not be supporting.
Christians did that.
Real quick, guys. I'm going to give you
in the Bible.
But they still do that today.
Guys, real quick. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds on this, and then we got to move on, okay?
I want to just read for the audience something from the Southern Poverty Law Center about the Proud Boys. Their disavowals of bigotry are belied by their actions. Rank and file Proud Boys and leaders regularly spout white nationalist memes and maintain affiliations with known extremists. They are known for anti-Muslim and misogynistic rhetoric. Proud Boys have appeared alongside other hate groups at extremist gatherings like Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. And then it also goes on to say that former Proud Boys member Jason Kessler helped organize the event Unite the Right, which brought together Klansmen, anti-Semites, Southern racists, and militias. He was only expelled from the group after the violence and near universal condemnation of that rally.
Thank you, Amanda. Go ahead, quick response, Robert, and then we got to move on.
She didn't prove how they're a white supremacist. She just gave me how the SP. I know you're not, but you just read a suburb from the SPLC that never said anything white supremacist that they had done. The SPLC can say that people agree with white nationality, and I don't agree with that kind of stuff. But to say that they're white supremacy because some people share white nationalist memes is kind of a stretch.
That means that those people are white supremacists.
Okay.
No, not necessarily. I don't think that people that want a nation of like if Black people wanted their own nation, I wouldn't say that people were Black supremacists.
This is not the hill you want to die on, Robert.
Yeah, that's bad argument, dude.
But that's the truth. Is I don't agree with that kind of stuff.
Why do they want an all-white nation? Why? Because they think white people are better than other nationalities, other ethnicities, or other races. That's literally
guys, we're way off topic here. We got to move on here.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the next question here, which is how we thought the moderators did overall and what we thought could have been done better. Let's go, Vlad. You haven't spoken in a while. How do you think Chris Wallace did overall?
Honestly, I think Chris Wallace did the best he could with what he had. Legitimately, it's difficult to debate, or it's difficult to moderate a debate when people are acting like a bunch of toddlers and people are trying to talk over one another. And I'm not saying that anyone in this group is a toddler, but Alex, I'm sure you can just nod your head if you agree. When people start talking over each other and start yelling over each other, it's a difficult situation to be in, right? just nod your head if you agree. Come on. So I think he really did the best he could with what he had. I think in order to make this debate better and to make a moderator performance better as well as a candidate performance better, you need to change the format. I mean, at the very least, give the man a mute button. So when someone's not talking, cut their mic. And that's the end of that. So
Didn't
you
they
know,
propose that as a rule change for the next one? And Trump
I
said no?
believe I think they proposed it. I can't speak to what the response was, but I'm not surprised that he would say no.
So, Vlad, what do you think should change for the next? If you had your way, what would you change for the next debate to make it move along a little more smoothly?
Honestly, 2 minutes per speaker. That's it. If someone wants to make a rebuttal, give them a minute. Give the other person a minute to respond to that, and that's it. And then you move on. And the biggest thing that you got to do is maintain some semblance of order in this thing. And I think the only way you can do that is to cut the mics. So that's what I would do. 2 minutes each to make a point, 1 minute each to make a counterpoint. Cut the mics, and that's it. And I think it would be better. That said, next debate is a town hall style, so I don't know how easy it would be to implement something like that. But in a traditional sense, like in this type of debate, that's what I think you should do.
Good. Thank you. Real quickly, going back to the chat, Hope Mariscal says Chris Wallace needed a mute button. I agree. I think that would have made it a lot better. I think we all agree with that. Charles McConnor says in the chat, he did the best he could. Trump did what he wanted to do. It was just a distraction from the issues. Yeah. I don't know. I would say so. Let's move on to Tyler next. Go ahead, Tyler.
So Chris Wallace interrupted the both of them 30 times from my count throughout the whole entire debate or event. I can't really call it debate. He tried to interject. He tried to be able to control the narrative, not necessarily the narrative, but the progress of the event there. He just couldn't get them to stop talking, and his voice isn't loud enough. There was a point that he did raise his voice and they did stop talking. And basically what Chris Wallace was saying was like, I don't usually need to raise my voice, but you guys are doing it. So I need to get you guys to stop and move on. Chris Wallace also lost his train of thought just as often as everybody else did with the debate, because there were so many distractions, interruptions, and pivots in the middle of one of the other candidates speaking. And it makes it really difficult. I think, as everybody else has said, if we have it to where there's a mute button or there's a way that we can stop them from talking, that would help out dramatically. But as Vlad had said, town halls, you look like a jerk, a total and complete jerk, if you talk over a United States citizen asking you a question.
Thank you, Tyler. Quickly to get back to the chat, William Adams says shock collar. Maybe. I think Vlad did suggest that at one point, right?
I'm on board.
There you go.
I've said it.
Charles McConnor said mute when it's not their turn. Agreed. Christina Purdue says in the chat, mic cutoff button next time. Okay. Yeah. All right. We get it with the mic cutoff, guys. Like,
They should have just done the whole thing on
suggestion.
Zoom.
It's been made 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for your comments, by the way. Really appreciate you guys sticking with us tonight. Really, really cool. We've actually had some of the highest viewership tonight that we've ever had. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Moving on, let's go to Jake next. Go ahead, Jake.
So I thought Chris Wallace did you need to take him a little bit out of context of this particular debate. Like if he had done any other debate in history, that would have been amazing. He would have been a fantastic host. But he went in expecting a kind of difficult, but still like they usually are debate, and got nothing like that. And he held the pieces together fairly well. I would like to see a complete revamping of this nonsense debate idea. They're not debating, they're just responding to ideas. I want them to debate. I want them to define their terms, have fact checkers, and be able to lose. I would love to see somebody, I don't care which one of them loses. If they're up there and they just flub completely and lose their argument, that's fine. They shouldn't win. We're talking about an actual challenge to your intellect and an actual capacity to form arguments and make a point, and at the same time talk about how you're going to help the country. I'd love to see that. I'd also love to see some mute buttons and like live fact checkers with big red X's behind the people. We're going to make theater of it. Let's do it well.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you.
Shot caller.
The audience should get to have like buttons that just in real time, you get to decide if you like the answer or not.
Tomatoes.
And then we get to see a visual spread of like red and green lights.
As long as we're doing political theater, right? Let's move on to
Tomatoes.
let's move on to Kylan next. Go ahead, Kylan.
For me, I don't know what more Chris Wallace could have done. I don't agree with some of the sentiment out there that somehow that Chris Wallace was somehow biased towards Joe Biden. I think that's a weak argument. I don't think he was trying to prop up Biden. It's obviously going to seem somehow slanted that somehow Chris Wallace was anti-Trump. Donald Trump was doing the vast majority of interruptions and low blows. So of course, when Chris Wallace is spending a majority of his time trying to say, Mr. President, please let the vice president finish. Mr. President, please, let's move on. Obviously, it's going to look like he's admonishing the president even more. You know, I would like going forward to have debates be either Lincoln Douglas style or all town hall. I think, you know, the whole purpose of a debate is for the American people to hear from the candidates how they're going to help them. I don't care about beliefs. I don't care about philosophy. I don't care about personality. What's in it for me? What are you going to do to help me, my family? What are you going to do to help the American people? And I think a town hall debate or a Lincoln Douglas style debate where it's just mano a mano, talking about issues is the way to go. You know, no more theater, no more sound bites, no more trying to get the one viral moment that you can make an ad on 30 minutes after the debate. Address the damn issues, and especially with the people. I want voters to be able to ask questions, get their questions answered. I want them to look the voters in the eye, call them by their name. You know, the things that we like that we like our servers to do when we go sit down to eat at a restaurant. Call me by my name, have respect, serve the customer. You know, the customer isn't always right, but damn it, in an election, the customer at least should have the question answered. That's my piece.
Thank you, Kylan. Apologize for everyone. The stream is a little bit behind. I want to get to two comments in the chat here. Jordan Rattet in the chat says, I agree with Jake's point wholeheartedly. Charles McConnor also says, great point, Jake. So, hey, Jake, gold star today, man. Good job.
Oh my God, finally.
David O also says in the chat, yes, real debates. It's also phony and contrived and frustrating. Sadly, I think that's part of the appeal of Trump for many people is that he says and does things that don't fit the mold. Yeah, I think most here would agree with that. And then Alberto says in the chat, Kylan, let's not be delusional. You can't expect the uncivilized to be civilized. I'm not going to touch that one. Anyways, let's move on. Does anyone else want to address how Chris Wallace did? Jules, you haven't spoken in a while. How do you think Chris did?
I think he did okay with the circumstances given to him. I don't think he was preferential to either candidate. I think he threw Trump a lot of softballs that Trump kind of like just watched go past him. I also think he wasn't super fair to Biden in a couple instances. He implied at one point that what was it, that Biden, there was a point where he basically inferred that Biden had a policy that he did not, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But there were several points in which that I just thought he wasn't very strong. He didn't really know how to wrangle it in. He came in thinking this was going to be a regular sort of traditional debate, and it wasn't. And as Jake said, it's never really been a debate anyway. It's always been more of a spectacle. It's always been more of a, you know, tit for tat, who can come up with the best one-liner against their opponent, who can look the most strong. You know, and here's the thing. I mean, the election, it's like, it's a long haul, and there's a lot of components that go into it. So Biden, you know, public speaking and debate, that's not his strong suit. He was never going to be the best at this section of the election. So to say Chris Wallace was unfair to one or the other, I think is kind of pointless. I think he wasn't expecting what Trump was going to do, and I think he just he wasn't strong. I don't think any of the moderators that have been announced for the future debates are going to be particularly strong in that way either. My only real hope is, at least for this next one, the town hall, is that Trump won't be able to directly insult voters to their faces. So
I would say that Chris Wallace actually gave Trump more time when he was just ripping through.
Yeah.
After he's interrupted, he did definitely give him some.
Yeah, I think actually, if I was going to really go down to it, I'd say Chris Wallace was slightly more preferential to Trump than he was to Biden. But I mean, it's fairly negligible.
Definitely fair.
Quick follow-up question to Jules, actually. Jules, what would you like to see from Biden in the next debate that would give you the impression that he had a better performance?
Okay, I have a really good answer for this one, actually, because what I want to see from Biden is for him to actually not just sit there and criticize Trump. He should definitely criticize Trump. He should say, Trump believes this, but here's how I plan to fix this issue, which I think is, I mean, for one, I don't think he really had the opportunity to do that this time.
He got better at that at the end.
He did. I think he got interrupted a lot. Maybe he was going to do that to a degree, but he didn't. I think what he needs to do is say, Trump says this and this and this. Trump has failed on these things. Here's what I plan to do with this specific issue. And I think that's really what he needs to do, is really put forth his platform, because I think he has a habit of just going for Trump doesn't want to do this and Trump's bad, and which is fine. Yeah, of course, attack your opponent, but say what you would do differently. I think that's really where Biden will find some strength, if he can find the opportunities to demonstrate his platform and demonstrate his ideas.
That and that seemed to be, I don't, as the moderator, I don't like to inject my opinion too much, but that seemed to be the main criticism of Biden, is that he didn't give enough about what his platform was while he was up there. He just tried to, draw the dichotomy between himself and Trump.
I mean,
I
it
think,
also was, sorry, I thought you were done.
So I just think, I mean, he didn't have the opportunity to.
Yeah,
is
that's
all.
what I
I
was
think
gonna
he just got interrupted too much. He never really got the chance to. I think this next debate, he'll have a much more. At least he'll have the opportunity to do that more. He's going to be answering questions directly from voters. I think, hopefully, I don't think Trump is going to be able to do what he did this last debate.
So
in the next one.
So Vlad, you wanted to hop in, and then I wanted to ask you the same question I asked Jules. Go ahead.
No problem. So just real quick to clarify a point that was made earlier regarding, how much time the two candidates spent speaking on the debate, and it seemed like Donald Trump spoke a considerable amount more than Joe Biden. Actually, they were fairly even. So Donald Trump spoke for 39 minutes and 6 seconds. And Joe Biden spoke for 37 minutes and 56 seconds. So in reality, there was about a minute of a minute advantage to Donald Trump in terms of actual airtime. So, just to clarify a point there. And I'm sorry, Alex, what was the question? Can you refresh my memory on that one?
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry. So the other question was, what would you like to see Biden do differently in the next debate to have a better performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main issue that I had with Joe Biden's performance was exactly what Jules said. There was no real plan or policy that he discussed during the debate, outside of bringing up from my recollection, bringing up a public option for, but not for everyone, for folks who desperately need it in terms of healthcare. Other than that, I felt like it was a lot of, well, I'm not this guy, and look at how things have been for the last 3.5 years, which is fine. To a degree, you kind of have to do that. But at the same time, like, show me what you're going to do to fix, to fix the issues that have been around for a long time, or new issues that have come up, since Donald Trump's election. Like, don't just tell me like, hey, vote for me because I'm not this guy, but tell me why. So that's really what I would like to see from Joe Biden in the next debate. And I think he's going to have a chance to do that because it's a town hall debate and there's going to be questions from actual voters. So I think the opportunity will be there. I just hope he doesn't kind of flub that opportunity.
Thank you. Amanda, same question. What does Biden need to do differently, in your opinion, for the next debate?
I mean, I agree with what Vlad said, and I think it is going to be easier in the town hall debate to focus on his policy positions. I think that he didn't actually have an opportunity to say what he wanted to say because he was constantly being interrupted and the conversation was constantly being pivoted to whatever Trump wanted to point out or talk about, or, Hunter Biden. Like, I felt like Biden was actually trying to talk about his policy positions, or at least, getting there. So I think that he's going to have a better opportunity, hopefully, in the next debate to actually lay out what he wants to do and what his positions are. And hopefully, nobody interrupts him to try to derail the conversation or say that he holds a policy position that he does not hold or has not said that he holds. And, obviously he got very frustrated with the interrupting to the point where he did say, just shut up, man, quit your yapping, called him a clown. And I think if he can kind of limit that, if he can stay focused, then he'll do better.
Thank you. Want to go quickly to the chat again. Charles McConnor, I think Biden will stress what he will do. I think Biden will stress what he will do as president. After the attack on his sons, it seemed to help him focus on what he wants to do as president. Stephanie O'Donnell says, I thought Trump went for antagonism and Biden appealed to sympathy. With Trump interrupting incessantly, Wallace sympathized. It's not about platform, but performance. I don't think we're going to be hearing much policy. That last part I definitely agree with. I don't think we're going to be hearing a ton of policy either. Let's move on real quick to Jake. I want to ask the same question to you. I assume most of the answers have been taken so far, but do you have anything that you'd like to add that you think Biden needs to do differently in the next debate?
I mean, I think Stephanie kind of nailed it there. We're watching a presidential election that is more about presentation and emotion than it is policy. So we've had 4 years where we've had lots of, and I'm not talking about specifically the politics, I'm talking about the social problems we've had. There's lots of pain in the last few years. And it seems like the one who manages to seem like they sympathize most with that is going to garner that middle ground voter easier. It's a, flies with honey thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else want to hop in on this? All right, let's go back to the chat real quick before we move on to the next question here. Anatoly Vilderman says, but the bottom line, who do you think has lost more voters, Trump or Biden? That's actually a good one. Who do you think lost more voters as a result of this debate?
You know what? I'd love to take that question, Alex.
Go ahead, Kylan.
Oh, thank you for the question, Anatoly. That's a great question. I think that, honestly, the president lost more voters. I think when you look at this debate, most people have already retreated to their corners. And so there's only a very small segment of people that are truly undecided. I don't see anything from that debate performance from the president that would have brought in any undecided voter, particularly, married suburban women or the college educated voter into his corner. And so, when you're getting close to the election, it's about trying to expand your coalition. And right now, how he's governed and how he's campaigned has been a purely base election strategy and a purely base presidential strategy. And so to answer your question, I think the president lost more voters. I think Biden still has work to do to try to consolidate his voters. But in regards to just net, I think the president lost voters and his performance was not something that's going to broaden his coalition.
Robert, I want to go to you next. Do you agree with what Kylan said? Make sure you unmute. You got to unmute and Zoom, Robert.
You can unmute him.
Can I? There we go.
We're good.
No,
Go ahead,
I, already,
Robert.
I already brought this up before. I don't think that any voters really changed their mind on anything.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Does anyone else want to address that? I think it's a good question. Does anyone else want to address that? Who do you think lost more voters as a result of this debate?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
actually,
Amanda.
I wanted. Oh,
Oh,
Hey, ladies
Go ahead,
first, Vlad.
Amanda, please.
so I know I say this all the time, but I really do watch every single testimonial that's posted on Republican voters against Trump. And there are a lot of people who made videos. They were hanging by a thread as a Trump voter on some issue and something about his character, or one thing that was reported that he said is what was the deciding factor for them, that they were either not going to vote for Trump or they were going to go all the way, swing left and vote for Biden. So I think that, you know, if you have those types of Republican voters, the people who voted for him because they've always voted Republican, or they voted for him because they didn't like Hillary, or, you know, they felt they had no other option, as opposed to, you know, what we think of as his core base of very ardent Trump supporters. I think those people are the types of voters he may have lost, or at least some of them, because they may have been looking for him to have that presidential moment of presentation and to show better character on that stage. And I don't think he won those voters over. I think if he's losing voters, it's people like that.
Thank you. Let's go to Vlad.
Well, this is what I get for letting Amanda speak before me, because she basically made my point for me. I do think that Donald Trump lost voters. I've been seeing, you know, stories and testimonials online through various news sources, through Twitter, from people saying, like, my dad's been a Republican voter. He voted for Donald Trump. He just took down his Trump sign from his front yard and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely a collection of Trump, Donald Trump supporters who, no matter what he does, they're going to vote for him. You know, he can literally come out and shoot someone on the, he could have came out and shot Chris Wallace on the debate stage and probably still would have voted for him. But there's also a group who hoped that he would grow into the presidency, who wanted to see, something different in Washington. And these were the people who, voted for Bernie in the primary, but then voted for Trump in the general election in 2016. And I think those are the kind of voters that he lost. The people who were kind of close and hanging on by a thread and maybe like were just hoping for something from him that was presidential, and they didn't get it. And that was it. I also think, I think Joe Biden speaking directly to the people might have influenced some of those folks to say, like, hey, this guy might actually care about me, where Donald Trump doesn't really. And so short answer to Anatoly's question, and also shout out to the Russians. Trump lost more voters.
Yeah, I agree with what you said at the end there. And you mentioned it earlier as a thing that stuck out for you was the eye contact.
Yep.
I did mock trial in college and in law school, and what they teach you when you're a witness is you look at the jury. And when I have my clients testify, so I'm going to digress for just a second. If you've ever been in a trial or, seen one or watched one or whatever, the defense sits furthest away from the jury. And when my client testifies, I physically move and stand behind the prosecutor at the end of the jury box, so that when my client has to talk, they're looking at the jury automatically. And so you get that connection, you get that, it humanizes the person. It makes you empathize with the person. And I think that was something that Biden needed to do. And I think he did it well, because he, one of those things that I see people say in these videos that I'm watching are, I want somebody who actually is going to care about all Americans, or I want somebody who's going to care about us, as opposed to just himself. And I think that that's what Biden was able to show a little bit more of than Trump was.
Thank you, Amanda. Going back to the chat real quick, we have Dava O says in the chat, I'm not sure which one lost more voters, but I'm pretty sure neither of them gained any. Sarah Herrera Calderon, hope I pronounced that right, says, I'm a Latino and I'm with Trump 2020. You are entitled to your votes, and we hope you do vote on November 3rd. We hope everyone votes. And then Charles McConnor, Trump, I work with vets, and they were totally disgusted the day after the debate. I've never heard them say anything negative about 46 minus 1. 46 minus 1. Fair enough.
Ouch.
That's a new one.
It's one way of saying it right there.
So
let's go real
Alex,
quickly. Go ahead.
I want to say something about Mr. Calderon in voting, because as you said, we want everybody to get out and vote. I would rather have Biden lose the election with 80-90% turnout, and he lost it on merit. He lost it because people chose Donald Trump. I am 100% okay with that. So if you vote, you're getting your voice heard. We need all of us to get our voices heard, no matter what.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's extremely important. That as many people as they can vote. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, we've only had like at max like a 56% turnout on election day. Is that pretty close to correct, or?
Obama's election in 2008 was, I think, the highest turnout, and that was 57%.
57. Okay, I was pretty close. Thank you. I want to go to Jules last on this topic, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. Go ahead, Jules.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of agree with Robert to a large degree. I don't think this shifted a lot of opinions. I think people who were going to vote for Trump were always going to vote for Trump. I think I read something like 90% of the electorate were already decided. They were going to vote for whoever they're going to vote for. And I don't think this really changed any real minds. It might have changed a very, very small percentage. And yes, I did hear a lot of people saying, oh, my dad is a lifelong Republican and he just took down his Trump sign. I think those people are predisposed to already want to, give up the goat. I think they were already not going to vote for Trump. I think maybe this was the final straw, but I think this could have been the final straw of many possible final straws. I think in the end, those people probably weren't going to vote for Trump anyway. If he lost voters because of this debate, it was because, there was a small percentage of people who are kind of like, I like him, but I don't know. I mean, I think the undecided vote is an extremely small percentage right now. I don't think that this debate really made a huge difference in terms of where the polls are going to go. If anything, we might see small polling advantage to Biden. I think that would probably be the only thing we'll see. We might see him rise a point, but I don't think there's so many people who are so loyal to Trump that I don't think that we're going to see a huge push one way or the other.
Thank you, Jules. Want to go to the chat real quick before we get to our next topic here. Charles McConnor says, breaking news, Trump to quarantine starting tonight. I did hear about that. The AP is reporting that Trump and the First Lady will be under quarantine because Hope Hicks, I believe, tested positive for the coronavirus, and she is showing symptoms. So all the best to the president and the First Lady. Hope they don't have it, but hope for a speedy recovery if they do.
Yeah, let's hope recover as well. Let's hope recovers.
Hope
yes,
recovers. Yes. So, and then, so let's move on now. So the next topic, broadly speaking, I want to go into, since there wasn't a lot of policy discussion when it came to the last debate, I want to go over our opinions on some of the issues that were discussed. So the first question, and I'm not sure who I want to pose this to yet, but I'll ask the question first. The question I have for you is, do you believe, now let's assume that Mitch McConnell didn't block Merrick Garland in 2016, and let's assume they're not trying to nominate somebody now. Do you think, as a point of principle, that a Supreme Court justice should be nominated in an election year?
No.
It's as simple as we always talk about giving the American people a choice, and this is one of the offices that we have nothing to say about directly, We can't actually vote for them. They're nominated by somebody we elect. So having the opportunity to vote for the person who actually gets that is the way that we get a say, regardless of which side is in office.
Gotcha. Amanda, go ahead.
So people might be surprised by this, but I'm going to say yes. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, back 4 years ago or whenever Merrick Garland was being nominated, said the president is president for 4 years. Now, there's an asterisk on that because of what did happen to Merrick Garland. And I don't know if you want us to keep with the hypothetical of that never happened. Merrick Garland is on the Supreme Court.
I do. As a point of principle, what is your preference?
So it should be you're president for 4 years. It's hard to talk in the hypothetical because without pulling up a chart that I saw a couple of weeks ago, I don't think we've ever had one maybe this close to the election, or if we did, it was like 150 years ago or something like that, some like deep in the 1800s. So it's uncommon as an issue that has come up. And when, back when Merrick Garland was nominated, they were saying, oh, well, it's never happened, or it's been 150 years since it happened in an election year. And that wasn't because of some rule, it was just happenstance. Like it was just, there weren't any vacancies for that period of time. Or if there were vacancies, they went through with the nomination and confirmation process, and the person was ultimately not confirmed. The Senate voted majority no. And so, technically, I think, yes, the president should be able to do their job, whatever their job entails, what the Constitution allows them to do and what Congress allows them to do through the entirety of their presidency. Now, if we're off of the hypothetical and back into real life, I think that this is just an insane amount of hypocrisy and it's gamesmanship. And I don't doubt that the Democrats in power, Pelosi, Schumer would have, I don't doubt that they would have done the same thing if the coin was flipped, but I still wouldn't think it was okay. I've told you guys before, I don't like liars, cheaters, or hypocrites. And this is something that I see as cheating, and I see it as hypocrisy. And if they're going to create a rule, they should stick with it. And all that Mitch McConnell has done is now move the goalposts and say, well, you guys didn't have the Senate that time and the presidency. Now we do. So this is different. It's not, that he's just making stuff up at that point.
Thank you, Amanda. Go into the chat real quick, and then I want to move on to the next person. Alberto says, I thought the broadcast ended. No, your computer just sucks. Charles McConnor says in the chat, yes, they have a right to do it. Mitch McConnell changed that. Anatoly Vilderman says the show must go on. Maybe the broadcast did end briefly. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Jules, your thoughts?
Okay, so I kind of agree and disagree with Amanda. So there has been 29 times that there has been an open Supreme Court vacancy in a presidential election year or in a lame duck session before the next presidential inauguration. The president made a nomination in all 29 cases. But the fact of that is the president incumbent made those nominations after he had won his re-election. He did not, they waited until after. And so the precedent has always been that if there is a Supreme Court nomination in an election year, very close to the election, that the nomination has always come after that president has won that re-election process. And so the Merrick Garland deal, I guess you could say that you could argue that because Trump won, it made sense, right? So it was not fair. It was completely ridiculous. And the precedent set by Mitch McConnell was not the same precedent that had been set before. But in this case, this is a completely different precedent. We have never seen this before, where a sitting president who is poised at this point, at least, to lose, is nominating a Supreme Court justice in order to secure the policies of the right-wing agenda. Very specifically, that is why they are doing this. This is why they're ramming it through. This is why they're going to try and put to accept a new Supreme Court justice in a historically short period of time, is only in order to maintain the right-wing hold on the courts. It's never happened before like this. It's very different. So I agree with Amanda. He has the right to do it, but it's never really been done this specific way before.
Jules, thank you. Let's move on. Vlad, you're next.
Yeah, I actually, my take on this is yes, but take. So does he have the right to do so? Given, if this was like a, Merrick Garland type of situation where we're talking 9 months before the election, absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that nomination was stolen, that Merrick Garland should be on the Supreme Court. That goes without, for me, that goes without saying. However, in this situation, does he have the right constitutionally? Sure. Should he be allowed to nominate, and should the Senate take up that nomination in hearings and actually begin a confirmation process when an election technically has already started? No. People are voting right now. Like, we've had over 1 million ballots cast in the 2020 presidential election. And it's a presidential election, like Robert said earlier, is kind of, Joe Biden's to lose at this point. Like, Donald Trump, if things go as they're going right now, is not going to be president in January of 2021. So for the Republicans to try to basically steal another seat in the Supreme Court, I think is wrong. I think, given that we're this close to the election, if you take all the other factors out of it, like, is it constitutional? Sure, absolutely. Should they play by the same rules that they forced President Obama to play under? Hell yes. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it herself. Amanda, you brought up this point. The president's elected for 4 years. True. President Obama was elected for 8 years, not 7 years and 1 month, which is what he served when a Supreme Court seat opened. So for Mitch McConnell to now come out here and say, well, we have the presidency, we have the Senate, and we're going to ram this confirmation through in 3 weeks, pardon my language, is bullshit.
Vlad, thank you. Let's move on to Tyler. Go ahead.
I mean, everybody kind of said what I'm kind of thinking, but he constitutionally can do it. He has every right to be able to do it. Frankly, we have a mechanism in our Constitution for temporary justices while Congress is in recess, but our Congress doesn't ever want to take a recess technically. So even though in actuality the Senate and the House won't be in session until December, if I remember correctly, Trump should be able to appoint a recess justice to be able to serve until the next president's able to put in a justice. But the way that the Congress's rules go right now, they're basically infinitely not in recess, even though they're not there. So they can do it. They are allowed to do it. Again, it's a matter of the question: should they be able to do it? I mean, that's obviously up for debate.
Thank you, Tyler. Want to go to the chat real quick. Alberto in the chat says, why can't we state the obvious? Obama and the Democrats fucked up. I mean, if you're referring to, Merrick Garland, I don't know what more they could have done, but, and then he also says in response, start playing dirty, play the game to win, be the 90s New York Knicks or the Pistons.
Well, see, the problem is if we start doing that, then the goalpost keeps getting moved, and then it's just basically a nuclear option. Things could just really get messy until somebody comes in and says stop. We don't need it to get to that, like packing the court with judges. I mean, yeah, technically any president can pack the court with judges, but if we do it now, then in 4 years somebody else could do it, and in another 4 years somebody else can do it, and then we have 50 judges, and that is irrational. It's not what our country needs. So yeah.
So Alberto already says in response to you, we're already there. So, you know, take that what you will. But that actually segues perfectly into my next question. When
Alex, I was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kylan. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, one point that I want to bring up that I'm surprised that kind of fell into the bushes is this is not just about consolidating power for this seat. As Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio have said, and as the president has said, he wants to have a full slate of justices because the Republican Party and Donald Trump already plan on challenging the legitimacy of all mail-in ballots. So their plan is to make sure that there's a full Supreme Court when they inevitably challenge mail-in ballots and try to get the mail-in ballot count stopped. And so, you know, that's the main reason that I'm concerned about why they're ramming this justice through. They want to circumvent the will of the people totally and invalidate the election. And my point on this is there going to be any courage, you know, from any of the conservatives on the Supreme Court to basically save democracy? And two justices that I have in mind that I'm hoping have courage are John Roberts and Neil Gorsuch. I don't have any faith in Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito and or Barrett or or Captain Squee Kavanaugh. But I do John Roberts and Neil Gorsuch have enough courage to say, you know what, this is bullshit. You know, people have been voting by mail for decades. There's, you know, all of the major people, researchers, scientists, Republicans and Democrats have said that mail-in voter fraud has not been happening in any way that could ever shape something as mass as a presidential election. And so, you know, that's why they want to ram this justice through. They want to make sure that they have a full slate of justices because they, you know, Lindsey Graham already said that this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. So take them at their word. They are not going to let the voters speak without being challenged. And so we all have to be vigilant. Everybody needs to vote early, vote right now, make sure your vote counts. And when these challenges inevitably happen, make sure that you are ready. And what I fear is, look at what the dry run that was done in the summer when you're talking about tear gassing and flashbanging protesters in the square so he can take a photo out with a Bible upside down. They're already doing a test run of bringing in the military and bringing in the hard fight to when people inevitably take the streets. If the Supreme Court and Bill Barr challenges voters and circumvents the will of the voters, they're going to bring in the military to put us all down and make sure that we don't get in the streets to fight for our democracy. I'm hoping that this is far-fetched. I'm hoping that everything I'm saying is worst case scenario. But if you look at what the actions have been happening, the precedent is already being set. The groundwork is already being laid. You know, the frog is already slowly boiling.
I just got to jump in there real quick. Donald Trump wasn't holding the Bible and upside down, so that was a Joe Biden talking point. That wasn't true.
I don't know if it was Joe Biden.
Okay, Robert, you know what? You're very right. Okay, he wasn't holding the Bible upside down. He just tear gas and flashbang peaceful protesters to walk across and hold the Bible right side up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, they were trying to attack the president. I mean,
they absolutely were not trying to attack the president.
Yeah, there was reports that DHS had reported that people were throwing water bottles.
No, they were not trying to attack the president with water bottles.
The media was in there at the time, live when it happened. We're saying the protesters were peaceful.
All right, guys, I don't want to get too much into this. We're getting off topic here, but I want to go to Jules next. Jules, you had thoughts on the Supreme Court?
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to touch on what Tyler was saying about the slippery slope argument that he presented. If we pack the courts, then the Republicans will come back and they'll pack the courts and then back and forth and back and forth. Well, that's not really all that needs to happen, right? So in all fairness, we need to do a couple things in order to restore balance to the courts. Yeah, I actually do believe that the Democrats should add some justices to restore balance to the courts, to restore legitimacy to the courts. I think he should add maybe 2, maybe 4. Fine, whatever. But to Tyler's point that the Republicans will just come back and do the same thing. Well, no, they won't. If we restore balance to voting rights, if we restore the Voting Rights Act, if we allow DC and Puerto Rico and maybe even Guam and the Virgin Islands to become states, because territories are a crazy outdated idea. Like what are we, an empire? No, these are territories that we basically have control over, but they have no rights whatsoever to have any say over what happens in their political lives. So we add those, the Republicans will never win. And we add two Senate seats from Puerto Rico, 2 Senate seats from DC, as they've deserved for many, many decades now. I mean, the Republicans know that if we did that, they would never win the Senate ever again, because those are Democratic territories. They're not going to vote for Republicans because they've been spurned by Republicans over and over and over again. They're not going to vote for them. If the Republicans want to appeal to the new generation of people, they're going to have to pull back and return to the center, because they are going so far right. So I don't think it's a slippery slope. I think it's a strategic first step. We stack the court. Yes, we add 2 to 4 more judges. Great. But we also have to do more than that to restore actual balance to our democracy. And if the Republicans are going to ram through a ultra conservative justice so they can try and win and cheat their way into power again, we're going to have to do something about that. There's going to be consequences. And I think that's going to be the way things are going to be. In order for us to change that, in order for us to reverse that, there's going to have to be drastic measures taken. So I don't think it'll be a slippery slope if we do it right.
Thank you, Jules. And Charles agrees with you. Charles in the chat. Yes, Jules, they deserve the right to be part of the process, they being DC and Puerto Rico. So thanks for that point.
Yeah, especially Guam, Virgin Islands. I mean, we have a couple territories, American Samoa as well.
I think the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico would be combined into one state, if anything.
Possibly.
But it's also
Sure.
about the debt that Puerto Rico has. So somebody has to take that over.
But it's also about fairness. I mean, that debt can be absorbed into the United States debt that we've already amassed huge amounts of. Like, what's a little more at this point? I don't feel like we should eschew fairness because there might be financial hardship.
Quick response from Jake, and then I want to go to Vlad.
So you kind of, it seemed to me like you flip-flopped a little bit there, because you talked about rebalancing the court by stacking it with a couple more members. And then you talked about adding in the various territories that we've got under our belt and giving them senators. And then you talked about how that would mean Republicans would never win again. And that's not balance, that's horseshit. So if you're actually talking about
if you're
talking about balance, it's not balance.
Yeah, Jules, let him finish his point.
Okay.
So I think that on the idea of balance, like what we really should do is have, like, I've been looking at this a lot, but if we implemented a blockchain voting system, it would be almost impossible to hack. It would be extremely, extremely easy to have your vote matched to your identity. And doing something like that would mean there'd be no issue of balance. We put a 1-to-1 vote to the population and make that be the only thing, popular vote. Get rid of the Electoral College, and balance doesn't have to be an issue. The people will represent themselves.
Right. Oh, but you forget that I also said we need to restore the Voting Rights Act. We need to do other things that are not.
You're right,
just,
I did mess up.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I'm not saying that we need to take over as Democrats, but I am saying that if we allowed the people who deserve to have the right to vote and the right to representation, I mean, it's just statistically factual that those people would not vote Republican. I'm not saying that that's balance, but I am saying that that's how it would end up being, just by statistical fact. And that is balance. Balance is the majority rules. Balance is democracy. Democracy states that the majority of people who vote for a certain party, for a certain ideal, is the winner. And so I don't see that as a flip flop. I see that as, if the Republicans want to have a stake in that, then they need to change the way that they have the idea of rule.
Excellent. I like how you responded there. Thank you.
I liked it too. Let's go to Vlad next, and then we're gonna move to our fun topic and end the night. Go ahead, Vlad.
Awesome. Thank you. So the first thing I want to say is I agree with Jules on 2 points real quick. The first one is around restoring voting rights and making sure that voting is not only like available and accessible for people, but encouraged. So potentially making election day a federal holiday, giving people the time to vote so they actually have incentive to go out and do it. I think the Electoral College really needs to be done away with. And I think we are kind of headed in that direction with a lot of the states who have signed on the Popular Vote Pact. So once enough states do that, the Electoral College becomes kind of a moot point. And I mean, for a long time, I've considered the Electoral College to be a load of crap, because you have, multiple states who have, I think Wyoming or something like that. I did the math one time where a vote in Wyoming is 8 times more powerful than a vote in California, which should not be allowed to happen. But also, yeah, we do need to bring in these territories and make them states. I mean, you've got 3.8 million people, I believe, or 3.6 million people as of like 2019 who live in U.S. territories who don't have any representation and that includes DC, I'm sorry, who don't have any representation in Congress. I mean, 700,000 people who live in DC don't have representation. You've got all the residents of Puerto Rico, and at least for those 700,000 in DC, like you're talking about, one of the big things that started this, the American Revolution, was taxation without representation. They're being taxed. They're paying federal income tax. They don't have any representation in Congress. Granted, the folks in Puerto Rico don't pay a federal tax unless they're U.S. government employees. But, for those 700, it's a pretty big deal. So I would say we definitely need to add, Puerto Rico as a state, and finally recognize Washington, D.C. as a state, and get, 4 more senators there. Whether they're Democrats or Republicans, I don't know. I think they'll be Democrats. I quite frankly wouldn't care one way or the other as long as those people are actually represented. But that's really what it boils down to, at least for me.
Thank you, Vlad. Want to go quickly to the comments one more time before we get to the fun topic here. Dava O in the chat says, yes, to add to what Jake was saying about blockchain voting, just imagine a secure electronic voting system in which you could vote in real time on each individual issue, come back anytime and see that it hasn't changed, see real-time counters as votes occur around the country, and get results almost immediately. Wouldn't that be something? Anatoly Vilderman says in the chat, it should be based on GDP generated by the state. I don't know if I agree. The output should be
California rules.
Yeah,
California rules everything.
Texas and New York, everything else is.
Yeah, exactly. California, Texas, New York, maybe
Illinois.
Massachusetts.
No kidding. All right, guys. We're gonna move on to the fun topic here. I just made this up 5 minutes ago, so none of the panelists actually know what it is yet. So I'm gonna go for it right now. And Hannah, if you're listening, please write this down. The fun topic tonight, we are right here at 8:55 at night on Project Sips podcast. We are going to create a drinking game for the next podcast, or for the next debate, I should say.
Okay.
Dear Christ.
So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to come to each of you individually, and you're going to add a rule as to when you need to drink. And I'm going to start with Vlad. Vlad, what do we drink at the next debate? Or what point in the next debate do we drink?
Drink when one of the two candidates interrupts the other.
Okay.
Ugh.
All right, that's enough. We're ending it
No,
right
no,
now.
no. Tyler just almost died.
I think my answer just gave the entire group alcohol poisoning.
Oh God.
No one said it had to be a big sip
Yeah, it's just a sip.
from
No, it's
Project
take a
Sip.
shot.
No.
Yeah.
Uh,
Everclear, get out.
oh my God.
Diesel for the win.
Jeez. Kylan, create your rule, my friend.
The first time Joe Biden says, "Here's the deal."
Oh, you stole mine.
So that's just
Uh-huh.
one drink, right?
Oh.
Or
Every time he says, "Here's the deal."
You have
Okay.
to take a shot.
so there we go. So that's another one right there. Amanda, what's yours?
Fine. Every time Trump says Hunter Biden.
Okay. And Jake, go ahead.
Every time Biden says "listen" or starts a sentence with "listen."
Oh no. This is gonna be terrible.
Yeah, especially if we have to do all these rules. That's it. We're all dead after
That's
that.
why I asked Hannah to write it down.
Interrupting, that's the thing. Listen, like listen.
Oh,
And he's being interrupted. Here's the deal. Listen.
Oh
Interrupt.
God.
double whammy right there.
And we're all dead.
Alberto says in the chat, so is this the last SIP podcast ever? Probably, if we go by these rules.
Sip.
It's been nice knowing you guys.
We're gonna go from Project SIP to Project RIP.
There you go.
Oh,
Good one.
Snap.
that got dark.
Robert, what's your rule?
Every time Donald Trump does a hand gesture.
Oh,
Ooh.
Jesus.
Ow! No!
So literally
Oh,
every time he speaks.
How dare you?
Pretty much.
Robert,
that's a good one.
That is a
Robert,
good one.
You've
that
got a
hurts
high
my liver.
tolerance, man. Yeah.
Let me write my will.
Dava O says in the chat, every time Biden starts counting down a bulleted list of items. Nice.
like it.
Jules, what rule are you adding?
Every time Joe Biden does his listen and compassionate voice.
Didn't we get that one?
No, not yet.
Oh, we didn't. That's new. Okay, good.
No, it was every time he says the word "listen" or starts.
Oh,
a
I
sentence.
haven't
No,
know.
every time
Yeah.
he says, every time he pleads with you with his compassionate voice, his low,
His soft.
compassionate voice,
soft
his
Jules-
soft voice.
Jules, does that include every time he looks directly into the camera?
He usually
That's
does that at
separate.
the same time. So,
Okay.
Probably.
but
But-
no, they're separate incidents. So he can look into the camera and say something forcefully, or he can
All right,
look
fair enough.
at
Fair
the
enough.
camera and say, "My son."
Oh man.
Okay, fair. Okay, you got a point. Fair enough.
All right,
No, no,
Tyler.
please stop with the soft voice. It's creeping me out.
especially with his
Never
shirt
stop
unbuttoned
with
like
soft
that too.
voice.
Like,
We should
It's-
all do a whole debate in that voice.
Biden ASMR, y'all.
Oh my God, no,
Oh,
no.
fuck.
all right, I'm gonna go to Tyler for the last rule of the night. Go ahead, Tyler.
Anytime one of the candidates says China,
That would never happen.
I
Okay,
have another one.
I feel
Alex, what's yours?
I feel the need to have to say this real quick. Project SIP does not endorse actually playing this game.
And it doesn't have to do. SIP has nothing to do with getting
if you
drunk.
play Don't drive. Have carbs before drink water. You're fine.
Yeah,
Holy
drink
shit.
a lot of water. Always end the night with an Excedrin or an Advil. Like, that's
Yeah.
the way to
Feel
go.
like,
Actually,
Okay.
just
Like-
just don't
Never
just
drink and drive.
Yes, that's
I have another one.
responsibly,
I have another one.
you already had. Okay, fine. Is this replacing your wall?
Anytime Joe Biden mentions Scranton.
ooh.
That's
Okay,
a big one.
Ooh,
So
That's
wait,
one.
That is a good
okay.
one.
Good one.
See,
So
that one won't actually kill people. So that's
so for mine, for mine, they said China 7 times. For Amanda's, he only said Scranton twice.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
he said
Ooh, he got you there.
Oh,
So
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of tonight's broadcast. I'm actually going to send the outro over to Kylan this time. Go ahead.
So I'd like to give a personal thank you for all of our first-time viewers. We wouldn't have this project without you. So for all those who tuned in tonight, please make sure to like our page, please share, and please come back again. So on behalf of all of us here at Project SIP, and on behalf of our host, Alex, have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Good night.
I think Jules has something he wants to say.
Oh, I just want to put a shout out to Shane Caney, my cousin, who gave us some wonderful help with
Yes,
our
yes.
outreach.
Thank you
That's
so
how
much.
you
Yeah,
pronounce
Thank
your
you,
last
Shane.
name.
Appreciated.
It was
Thank you,
very,
Shane.
very much appreciated.
And
I don't know
Thanks,
how
that'll
to
Shane.
do it.
pronounce your last name.
That'll do it right there, guys. Thanks for watching.
Cheers,
We'll talk
guys.
to you guys in the next one. Good night.
Good night.